Hi guys, can someone please tell me why Rocco Forte, the hotelier, was invited onto the Laura Kuenssberg show to talk about the economy? If you're not familiar with the guy, he campaigned for Brexit and still supports the UK's exit from the EU. However, I covered him a few years ago where he was complaining about British people being too lazy to work in his hotels and he had to rely on foreign staff instead. Wasn't one of the reasons to leave the EU to empower British workers? Anyway, he was back to complain about tax rises. It's clear he doesn't want his taxes to go to pay for public services and is willing to talk absolute tripe in order to achieve that. Have a listen.
Bridget said that working people wouldn't pay higher taxes. Everybody's going to pay higher taxes because the thresholds have been frozen, and that has been extended a further number of years. So a lot of people come into the higher rates of tax very quickly over the next few years. If you want, it's an ideological approach. I mean, Labour thinks that government can do everything, that by government spending money, it's going to get the economy going, and so on. There are ways in government can spend money, and in the private areas of the country, you need to create the incentives for businesses to start up. But it's the private sector that creates the wealth, and that's what always is forgotten. It's been forgotten in Europe for years, and that's why Europe has stagnated for a long period of time. We're going to see the same thing here. Well,
people like him said we need to leave the European Union in order to stimulate growth. If we leave, everything will be wonderful. There'll be sunlit uplands. But where have those sunlit uplands been? Why haven't they arrived? So he's just talking tripe once again. This is one of these Brexiteers that believe in small government, about deregulation. We need to remove all this regulation and then businesses will thrive and they'll hire lots of people and we'll grow the economy. In order to grow the economy, you need both public investment and private investment. You need the government to build the infrastructure, railways, hospitals, towns, infrastructure for businesses to set up. That's what you need. If you don't build that, then you're not going to be able to have a thriving private sector. I've given examples before. Build an airport, and you're going to see a lot of small businesses set up around the airport. A hub. Tourists coming in, business people coming in, it creates wealth in that local area. And there are numerous examples around the world of that. But this guy seems to think, well, government can't fix these problems. Well, who else is going to fix these problems? The Tories have refused to invest in the public sector sufficiently over the last 14 years, and you've seen stagnation. He'll probably say, well, because they should be cutting regulations. But regulations are there to help protect businesses from other businesses, to help protect the consumer, to protect the environment, to protect workers. If you cut all this regulation, what's going to happen? You're going to have more money going to a very small group of people. Now, maybe that was his motivation for supporting Brexit. It was about more money going to him as opposed to going to his workers or going to the exchequer, which is there to provide public services. See, these types of Brexiteers, I believe, want a small government. They don't want regulations. They just want to maximize profit for themselves. And they saw the EU as a problem because the EU believes in supporting workers, believes in protecting the consumer, protecting the environment, and protecting businesses from other businesses. And this is, of course, a problem for people like him. He would like to screw over his workers. He'd like to operate in ways that are probably not very ethical and get away with it because the government is too small to do anything about it, or the government doesn't have the regulations in place to protect workers, for example, or the environment or the consumer. So when Brexiteers like this guy threw huge amounts of money behind the campaign, they were hoping that the new government would come in and rip up all these regulations to protect the classes that I talked about. Well, it didn't seem to work out that way because it was nonsense. It was a ridiculous approach. And while the Tories did underfund public services, they had to stay in power. They knew that if they gutted them completely, they would lose their seats. And that's exactly what happened at the recent election. Don't know why they're listening to this guy. Why is this guy being invited on to talk about the economy? He supports lower taxation because it benefits him, not the state, not businesses. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.